What's going on, animators? Aaron here from CG Riff. Thank you all for joining us for episode 16 of the CG Riff Animation Podcast. Strap in. You guys are in for a big treat tonight. Our guest is none other than Rani Naamani, who is in animation leadership up at Netflix. He was at DreamWorks for a number of years, supervising on shows like Fruits 2, Boss Baby, a lot of shows over there. And prior to that, he was Blue Sky for a bit and a number of other studios as well. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Ronnie. I'm really excited to get into it with you and hear about your inspiring journey and your story up to this point. Thanks for coming on and joining us tonight.
Of course, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure, man.
Yeah. So, I'm excited to hear about your upbringing and kind of how you found your way into the industry. So let's go ahead and start at the beginning. Tell us, where did you grow up, and what role did art and or animation play in your childhood and your upbringing, and kind of how did you find your way into the industry?
So I'm Lebanese Canadian, born in Lebanon, lived in Lebanon and Canada, then kind of after Canada, I came back to Lebanon and then graduated. At the time when I graduated, which was in should I say, is it even the 2000s? I hope it is because I feel so old. But basically, when I graduated, there wasn't really an animation program in Lebanon, and luckily, my mother and father were huge proponents of doing what you love, and if you can find it, then they'll support it. And so luckily, because I had Canadian citizenship, I was looking at different schools, and I found Vancouver Film School. And so I decided, all right, I'm gonna make the jump. I need to do something I love, and to take a few steps back, actually, I should kind of say that I always loved film, and animation was something that happened. I think a lot of the people in my age kind of hit the same thing with Toy Story and Jurassic Park, where those two movies were like tent poles. And, at the time, CG was such a new thing that you look at it and you're not even sure what's going on and how they're doing it. It's like, it looks like clay, kind of, but what is it? And so it was just very intriguing. That kind of got me very curious about okay, well, how are you making these things? And then you fall into the rabbit hole of software and just and that's kind of that was the bug, I guess, that kind of bit me and got me into animation. But yeah, like I said, I always loved film, storytelling in general, and so in a way it's not like what you wanted to do from the beginning. It's just what you were interested in from the beginning. So you almost don't give it that much thought. You just do what you do, and then when you're older and you graduate, you just look back in retrospect and you're like, all right, well, I guess this is what I'm gonna do then. Can I make money off it? So and growing up, I loved the Looney Tunes. I loved Looney Tunes. I think a lot of the sense of timing and comedy for me personally, when I look back, I think probably came from Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry. Watching so many of those episodes ingrains it in your head, and you develop a sense of rhythm, right? And that rhythm has a meaning and a certain type of groove. So I think that kind of helped dramatically. It was, in a way, it was kind of like a film or an animation school without you realizing, right? You're just kind of watching it, but you're absorbing all this stuff. So that's kind of where it started. And then from Vancouver Film School, I just basically I did a 1-year program there, which on paper sounded simple. And then you realize that they're not messing around when they say, oh yeah, it's just 1 year, but it's like 4 years worth of stuff in 1 year. They weren't joking. So the nice thing about the program actually was that it kind of forced you to do everything. And a lot of us, I feel like, when you're in your teens, you're stubborn and you think you know everything, and then when you're in your 20s, you kind of start to question some things. In your 30s, the more you grow, the more you feel like you don't know anything. Like me, I'm like the one answer that probably annoys everyone is anything starts with "it depends," right? I don't know, it depends. So I think at the time I knew I wanted to do animation. I just wanted to focus on animation, but the school forced me to do everything else. And so now when I look at it, I'm like, that's a great, actually, program because it makes you really experience all the different parts of filmmaking, but also kind of see how they all connect together so that when you're doing that one thing, all these other things are, you kind of, in hindsight, you're thinking about them, but maybe not indirectly, but it does inform your decisions whether you know it or not, you know? So I did Vancouver Film School, did a short film. It got a little bit of love from the festivals, and so it did its little round. And then after that, I started my first job at Mainframe, which was a local company in Vancouver. It did Reboot back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then from there, I had a buddy of mine who had moved to Texas to work at DNA Productions.
Yeah.
And,
Okay. Emily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ernesto, thanks to him if he's watching. But yeah, basically, he just called me one day and he was like, "Hey, so they're making a movie." And again, like, context matters. You got to remember, this is at a time where there's no YouTube, and just saying you're gonna work on a movie was like such a big, rare thing, right? And so yeah, I was like, all right, let's go. Cut to me, my bag's already packed. I'm like, all right, let's do this. So I go to DNA Productions. I work on the Ant Bully for a year. Super, super great company. I had an awesome time. Unfortunately, the next project didn't get greenlit, and so they actually had to shut down. And I had to scramble because I'm Canadian. I don't have a work visa, right? So
Yeah.
I had to apply for a new one. Long story short, things worked out, and DreamWorks, I reached out to DreamWorks, and at the time they just had like a kind of like a temporary position of like, let's try you out and see. And so I was like, what? I'll take whatever I can get. So I just said yes, moved to the Bay Area, and then
So this was up at PDI.
So this was up at
Okay.
PDI.
Yeah, okay.
I was there for almost 10 years.
Wow. Okay.
Until it shut down. So you're gonna realize there's a pattern. I always tell people there's a pattern. Like, I stay places and then they shut down, and I go to another place and they shut down. So anyway,
Harbinger of death.
yeah. But yeah, so unfortunately, it shut down. It was pretty emotional. We I feel like at PDI, a lot of my growing years in 20s were there. So like, I grew up there basically.
Yeah.
And when it shut down, it was difficult, but eventually moved down here to LA, and they welcomed us with open arms at DreamWorks Glendale. So just continued the DreamWorks journey, and then for 15 years in total. And then after that, I got an opportunity to jump onto Netflix and just try something very different. And I've been there ever since. I think I'm about to be there for about 3 years now.
Wow,
but yeah,
okay.
It's been fun.
Awesome. Yeah, that was that's good. Thank you for keeping that concise, because that means we'll get into a lot of other good meaty stuff, because I got a ton of great questions for you. But 15 years at one company, or under the umbrella of one company, even in two locations. It is a long time, and like you mentioned, you kind of grow up at a place. What would you say, I guess, were some of the primary ways in which you grew and developed as an artist during your time at DreamWorks? Obviously, I'm sure you touched a ton of shows in that amount of time, but can you speak to that?
Absolutely. I mean, definitely that's where you grow the most, right? I mean, like, it's just like when you're actually on the job, you're gonna learn the most. I learned from different sources. I learned from different projects. I think, in a nutshell, the nice thing that DreamWorks had going on, it was the fact that there were so many different ranges of styles that it just helped you. It really helps you see a bigger picture of acting and movement, where it's like you get to do something as crazy pushed as Boss Baby or Trolls, and then as grounded and more naturalistic as Dragons. So, by the end of your education, really, in a way, you connect a lot of dots, because you're seeing a lot of similarities, and you can see the differences, and you know how to jump between one and the other. So, and in a way, it builds your sense of range, because you push things and then you've gone minimal with things, and so in a way, you kind of know, as you're working on one style or the other, where you're at in the map in that range, right? Like you get a sense. So that was one big thing I feel like that helped me as an animator. Two, obviously, like, with all these studios, like, you have some incredible artists that are there. So asking them, for their opinion, getting feedback, and especially getting the thing about feedback, whether it's animating or drawing, whatever it is like, for me, what I've learned the most is when I do something wrong and then they tell me how to do it right. So whether, if you're drawing something and then you have someone do a draw over on top of that with tracing paper or digital, it's that thing of like, here's what you did, here's how you were thinking, here's how you should think about it, maybe, right? That's where the learning happens. So I feel like the feedback that I got on my shots, whether it's from the animators, whether it's from the directors, it really kind of helped me just kind of see things that I wasn't looking at.
Yeah.
And, I also asked a lot of different people, right? Like there's people who are great with acting. There's people who are great with action. There's people who are great with a sense of, timing and comedy. Depending on what you're doing, you ask the person who's good at that. And then, that's just how, and you'll just get better. So
awesome.
That's kind of the two main things I'd say.
Yeah. So you touched on it. So I wanted to back up a bit, actually. So your time at VFS, were you doing only 3D animation, or was there a 2D animation component at Vancouver Film School as well? Were you doing kind of both, or?
So it was primarily 3D, and everything was built towards doing a 3D short film by the end. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, there are like, little kind of classes of like 2D, and then there's classes of like, I guess character design. And so they try to have you dip your hands in everything.
Okay.
But they weren't the primary ones. So like, it's not like they were frequent, but they were there, and it's humbling because like like, I remember there's a student who was incredible at drawing, and like I would just draw something and then I'd be like, okay, yeah, this is not for me. I think I'm gonna stick to CG.
Okay. But that was gonna be my next question, is if you had, how much of a drawing background you had, like prior to I guess going to Vancouver Film School. Yeah.
I drew a lot. But again, this was, I grew up in the 90s, so I didn't have nearly as much content. I didn't have 50,000 YouTube videos of like people saying like, here's how you blah blah blah. So like for me, I just kind of drew a lot of the same things, I guess, right? And so when I started, I had a sense of drawing and design a little bit, but I couldn't express it properly. I wasn't good enough to draw it. Most of my drawing education actually happened throughout the past 20 years in the industry. Just like, whether it's copying model sheets and then tracing over them, or whether it's getting, opinions from peers who are like incredible at drawing. So like where I am now with drawing is definitely better than where I started 20 years ago, but that's kind of where it happened. It was context specific in a way, and that helped too.
Awesome. So and this is always tricky when people ask me these types of questions, so I acknowledge that ahead of time. But during your 15 years at DreamWorks, are there any specific projects that stick out as favorites? And that could be either for the project or the work you produced on it, or sometimes, I know, at least in my case, a lot of times you love a project just because the team was really good, or the leadership, or just had good vibes. Are there any that stick out?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of moments that stick out. It's tough to choose one, to be honest. But
yeah.
It just, it's just, they're also very different. Like, I loved my time on Croods. I loved my time on Dragons 3. I loved how much I learned on Bad Guys. I loved my time on Bad Guys. So like each one had something. Like for me, Croods, Dragons, and also Boss Baby, it let me really kind of develop the character. That just the role itself, it was in a place where it's like, here's a character, try to do some performance tests and stuff. So it was very satisfying on those 3 projects just to kind of develop these characters. And that, I mean, to this day, I'm very satisfied with having that experience. Yeah. But then something like Bad Guys, I felt like a student. Like I was learning so much in terms of like appealing shapes, but not just that, shapes that are just very different than the animation-y shapes that maybe we would do. So it was humbling, where again, it's one of those moments that made me go like, okay, I need to like really focus here, because like this is new information, and it's not the first thing that I try to do shape wise. So yeah, to go back to what I was saying about style, now I look back at it, I'm like, I have this style that I learned now from Bad Guys. I have this style that I learned from a bunch of different shows, right? Whether it's like Crudes or the more realistic style on Dragons, and it all kind of it kind of combines into your personal library of, or vocabulary, sorry, of shape language. So yeah, it's tough to say. That's like a long-winded answer of saying it's tough to choose one, honestly. Like
No, that's fair. I mean, there's tons,
yeah.
and you named a lot of great ones in there. But no, I think you touched on something great there. That a lot of times, our listeners kind of span the board of the range of experiences and students and everything else, I would assume. But I always think that it's probably inspirational for people to hear that even someone who's been in the industry a really long time can I don't know if struggle is the word, but find a new style challenging, and it's great to be able to play in a lot of different sandboxes and challenge yourself in that way. And that's the growth only kind of happens outside of your comfort zone. And so hearing that even at the supervisor level, like getting on a show and having to kind of learn the shape language and kind of taking a lot from that experience is just a testament to the fact that learning animation is just kind of an ongoing process. You never like arrive. It's always like something new to learn or some new challenge to dive into and stuff. And so I think
And
that's really
struggle
great.
is the word. It is scary, and sometimes you like pull your hair, and I think that means you're learning, right? You're being
Yeah,
challenged.
yeah.
And yeah, it never stops. There's always something to learn. And yeah, once it stops, I think you'll just get bored in a way, right? Because you just kind of then you're just going through the motion. So yeah, there's always something new to learn.
Yeah, and I mean it's fun. I mean to constantly be sort of pushing yourself or being allowed to kind of take those risks and like explore different styles and stuff is I've found to be quite fun. I've had similar experience even at my time at Pixar. It's like on a show like Lightyear, we're working on something just so grounded and naturalistic, and then you do something like Luca that's just super pushed, and then you go into like something like Elemental that's like we're kind of like inventing it or like figuring out like what is water and how does fire emote and all these types of things. And even now, like Win or Lose is kind of out currently, and we were pushing ourselves in a lot of ways there to kind of take a lot of creative risk and stuff. And a lot of times, even a style that looks simple is actually some of the hardest stuff to do when you've got your bag of tricks and you're used to kind of shooting your reference and just kind of putting it in there. And then you're having to kind of simplify and strip away so much of that information to really make like strong graphic choices. I find that stuff like really exhilarating. Yeah.
Totally. Actually, you touched on something. Yeah, like that simple. Yeah, when something looks simple, right? Like you're saying, it's definitely not easy, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that I always kind of go back to is like, in life drawing, the first thing they kind of teach you is gesture drawing, right? You have to learn how to just feel the essence of, just capture the essence of the pose, and then just draw it. And the person who's drawing is usually a professional, and they draw it, and it looks great. It looks the most beautiful scribble you've ever seen in your life, and it's just a few lines that define everything they wanted. And to me, now when I look back, I'm like, I don't know if that's the best way to actually teach it, to be honest, because one, it's frustrating for when you're a student. You're like, well, I'm doing the same thing and it looks horrible. Like when I do a gesture drawing, because like all the stuff that's not there, I don't know yet. It's like I don't know the proportions. I don't know the perspective. I don't know how to draw that angle of the pose. And so, so so in a way, it's kind of touching on that idea of like they make it look very simple when they're doing that gesture, but there's so much information going, a lot of informed decisions of each angle that their hand is moving, right? That I almost feel like you should do the opposite, where it's like either you just copy poses, like finished poses, and you just do it 50 million times until you just get used to it. And now, guess what? You can go like this, and you know exactly what to do. Or you just learn to kind of like Lego, just draw different shapes and how you wedge them together first, and then eventually you can get a little fancy with your pose and stuff. But I always found that interesting because yeah, simplicity is definitely it's very valuable. If someone does something that looks super simple and super effective, that'll stick in your head, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Regardless of what media. So,
For sure, for sure. So one thing, one kind of my first, I guess, introduction to you as a person. Obviously, we know a ton of the same people just from being around a while. But you've put out a number of your kind of comparison reels where you have your reference, and then like you had one from the Croods, and you have like your better been shots, and then your reference kind of superimposed alongside it. I've always loved seeing that. I like peeking behind the curtain and seeing an animator's process, seeing how they're finding performance choices. Even with my students, I point to yours a lot because I'm like, look at the even with that, it's like it seems like, oh, he's just acting and kind of finding these choices and putting it on the character. But I know the work that goes into that to like build that performance and how many takes kind of go into finding something that's really going to work. Can you speak to sort of your process and sort of as how you kind of explore and sort of find your way to some of these performance choices and what role reference plays in your workflow?
yeah, absolutely. So for acting shots, there's definitely like a very specific method that I'm using, which is a lot of what you kind of see with the blocking that I have on like Instagram, social media, and basically I try to ask as many questions in the beginning so that when I'm in CG land, I have the least amount of changes that I need to do or redos or tweaks because it's just so slow and expensive and it takes forever. And plus, like especially if it's a show where you're doing a lot of shaping, like manual shaping, you don't want to like spend a day shaping 5 poses and then you're not even sure if it's what the director wants.
Yeah.
So I really try hard to like ask as many questions and answer as many questions in the beginning, which means that the reference stage takes a long time.
Yeah.
And usually my process is like mega slow in the beginning, and then as when you move forward, it gets a little faster, and so it's kind of like an exponential curve. Like if this is this is the date that you have to deliver, it's not. I think production wise, we kind of assume it's like a linear trajectory, but really it's more like.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
90% of that body, I'm tense and I'm worried that it's not gonna get done, and then production's like, ah. And so like everyone's kind of, and then when something clicks or when like extensive blocking gets approved, everyone kind of takes a breath. I take a breath, and then I can kind of go and kind of finesse it. But that's all again because I'm trying to just really plan as much as I can at the beginning, and sometimes it blows up in my face, and then in those cases I might switch to plan B, which is like just go back to like, all right, let me just kind of brute force and make it work, and don't worry too much about like shaping stuff, and then maybe when it gets approved I'll spend some time to kind of so like, but generally speaking there's a less chance of that happening if you get a lot of it figured out and expressed the way you want it and the director signs off on it. There's a lower chance that they're going to change their mind. So yeah, reference will take like 2 days sometimes, depending on how much. And what I usually kind of tell people is like, well, if you're feeling uncomfortable in the acting room, like, oh my god, I really should start working on my shot, you're probably in a good place actually, because that means you're pushing it more than you usually would, and so you might find a few gems that you wouldn't have. It's like that that meme picture of like the dude who's like the kind of digging under the ground, and then they just kind of give up right here. And
yeah, right before the Goldie or whatever. Yeah.
It's kind of like that, where it's like just keep going because you never know when you're gonna find that thing, and then you're gonna be like, oh my god, it was so worth it. But till you find it, you're always questioning if it is worth it. So yeah, my process basically really do heavy blocking, or sorry, do like heavy reference. What I'll do is I try to kind of figure out if it's a long shot, I'll break it down to chunks where I'll do like a few runs until I kind of get an idea of some of the main poses, whatever you call them, that I'm happy with. That I'm like, I kind of want to do this pose, and I'll use that as a tempo, so that now I can actually only take reference from here to here, knowing that I have to start in this pose and then this pose, and I can do 50 different variations in between. And then from here to here, I'll do the same thing, and then from here to here, and that way you can take a giant shot and actually try to make every moment interesting in real time. And then I'll show it to the directors, and if they sign off on it, great. If not, I'll probably go back and do another reference session, as uncomfortable as that is. Because again, if I go back and sit at my desk and I know they're like they're kind of okay with it, but not fully, why even start? So like,
Yeah.
again, I just want to make sure they're happy with it. So I'll go in once I get the reference, let's say 90% where they want it. Then I'll kind of disappear to my cave for like a few days and just really block all the main poses, which would be like, keys, extremes, and whatever breakdowns to sell the idea in stepped. And then once that's all in there, I'll usually show that pass to the director so that they can see how the acting is translating. And, if you have just a few poses and you get the emotional reaction you want from the room, I mean, you'll feel like $1,000,000, obviously, right? And you're going to go back to your desk super confident. And that's kind of the other thing too here is like, if you're going back to your desk confident because you just got a thumbs up from the leadership and from the director, then as you're spending more and more time in the details and really, just putting all that in, you're not second guessing and you're not like half, just kind of doing a half-baked job because you're like, I don't even know if they like this. So like, it helps your confidence in a way because they like it, and then you just keep building. So if that's the case, if I got to this point, then I'll go down to twos because I'm comfortable enough knowing that they definitely liked it, they signed off. So I'll break it down to twos, and then that's where, at that point, after I show that pass, if they give me the thumbs up, it's fairly quick from twos to like polished. And
Yeah.
the whole middle part, usually it's like blocking, spline or work in progress, and then polish. That splining part has always been weird to me. Like I feel like it's a part of the process that we unnaturally made it a step because it's production and we have to kind of track things every few days. So I feel like that's kind of where that's coming from because it makes no, like when you show it, usually there's like 50 caveats, like because it looks not correct yet. So to me, it really, if I look at it organically and naturally, what the process and the craft kind of calls for, I feel like it calls for blocking, maybe extensive blocking, and then just finishing it, like polish until it's done.
Yeah.
So it's usually how it goes.
No, that's really good. That's insightful. And it's always good to hear, because obviously there's kind of, I always tell people there's like as many workflows as there are animators in any department because there's people who approach things so many different ways. But no, I was interested to hear that you say that you do show your reference to the director, because I know a lot of people shoot reference and then they just kind of use that to inform their blocking. But like you say, you get so much more confidence from literally getting sign off on your acting choices before you've even set a single key, and you can go to your desk confidently. Here at CG Riff, we I really kind of stress on my students all the time the importance of planning, and we spend so much time in planning because it really does give you that confidence when you then go into the box in this like slow, laborious, expensive step of 3D animation. And you could use these quick, iterative, quick and cheap kind of ideation processes like reference or thumbnailing or whatever it is to really kind of flesh out your ideas. There's I think it's I want to say it's an Abraham Lincoln quote. I might be misquoting it, but it's something to the effect of, if I have 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. And so it's like you spend that time, like you say, and it looks like you're going really slow, kind of tortoise in the hairstyle. But then once you do, actually go in there with that full confidence, knowing that everything's signed off on, very clear on your ideas and your choices, that it goes pretty quick. Like at that point, you're just kind of like making the proportions work on a slightly different face or whatever, plugging it in there. But there's all of that guesswork is kind of removed. So yeah, I love that you touched on that. That was awesome.
Yeah, no, for sure.
What would you say? I think I might know the answer, but do you have a certain type of shot that you prefer or kind of gravitate towards? Do you prefer like working in like action shots or like comedy shots or really physical shots or kind of quieter acting moments? Or is there a thing that kind of speaks to you most or where you feel kind of most at home?
Yeah, I'd say like, pretty much the stuff I put on Instagram. So like acting shots, comedy usually for sure. I enjoy comedy, but I think more the part of comedy that I enjoy is just the entertainment part. So it doesn't have to be a funny thing. It just has to be something that's just fun. And I feel like, like action shots are not, I definitely am not a big fan. I don't enjoy doing action shots, and it's because they're difficult. And, every time I get one, it's like, it's challenging, and I question my whole career, and I'm like, all right, am I gonna pull this off? Because like the thing that I realized, you didn't even ask me this, but I'm gonna answer, is
That's
like,
fine.
go on. It's just that the fact that like with action shots, like I always feel like action shots never get the love reaction wise from people that they should, right? Because I think they're more difficult than acting shots. Like I think acting shots, not to take away from them, they can be very difficult to hit right. Like it has to get a certain emotion from someone. So if it's not hitting, then it's not working. So it's not easy. But logistically speaking, action shots are way more difficult. Like because action shots look wrong until they look right. I think acting shots, you can kind of get it working. Like you can make it feel like, okay, there's probably gravity and the hand gesture and everything. Yeah, that's okay. It works. So you can get it to it works way sooner
Yeah,
than you can
yeah,
get an action shots to it works. So like to me, anytime I see some crazy action shots, I'm like, that's incredible. Like it's, I don't I have so many questions. I don't even know like yeah, how did you do it, and what was the process, and how did you mix all like how did you find all this really nice timing, but also have a few nice key poses in there, and it's baffling to me. So yeah, every time I have an action shot, I just like yeah, I'm sweating and I'm just like down on the ground just trying to make it work. So acting shots are my favorite shots, both from a just having fun part, but also just what kind of resonates with me in terms of something that I feel like I have more ideas for, and I just like to kind of yeah be in that sandbox longer.
yeah. And I mean, I think that probably ties back in a lot of ways. And I agree. I mean, I don't mind action shots, but yeah, it's just that it's a lot more kind of troubleshooting. It's a lot more like problem solving. And for some of the reasons that you mentioned before, in terms of your process, on the acting shots, right? We know how to go in the reference room, find the character, act. We can show it, but like when you're having to, triple backflip off a bunch of buildings and like do all these things, and it's like, well, I can't do that, so now I have to like figure out just at all what I'm even going to try to do, and then like figure out, in the splines or whatever it is, like how to even make sense of all these different rotation axes and all these types of things. And so, yeah, the complexity, it really just stays a question mark for a lot longer. I feel like in terms of
Yeah, it's not easy,
how are you
man.
going to make it work? Yeah.
Yeah, and then in dailies, there'll be a shot of like someone just staring like this, was talking really subtly, and then just does a few blinks, and then everyone's like, and then someone's like a crazy action shot, and is like, that's pretty good. All right, next is like, that's so much work.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it is what it is, but and I understand also where it comes from, right? Because like acting, and especially when it's like an emotional subtle moment, like if it hits you emotionally, and so you have a bigger reaction. I just feel bad for like the action shot is pretty difficult. Like we should give that person a beer and just sit them down a little bit, because that probably wasn't easy.
Yeah. I had David Hahn on last season. He won the Annie Award for the first Spider-Verse film, and he's always been like this crazy action guy, and he gravitates towards those things. I think he's working at a game studio now, actually, but he's just like sick at those types of shots, and like every time I see his work, it just blows my mind, because like I know how much work goes into that, and like every single shot he does scares me. I'm like, I wouldn't even know where to start. So I was like, I'm glad there's a guy like that on the team that can go and do that, so I don't have to. But yeah, that's good to hear. So who would you say along the way in your career have been some of your mentors in terms of kind of shaping your career or the way you think about animation or art or life in general?
I mean, I think there's many, honestly. Like I've never embodied it into like one perfect human who's like, I am your mentor. Like to me, it's like I learned a lot from people who are great at acting. I learned, I asked them questions. I learned a lot from people who are great at action. I know it's like a very generic answer, but it is the truth. Is like it's just there wasn't any one specific person who like really knew how to like give me all the answers. But so I just kind of learned from the people around me, saw everyone's strengths, and just kind of asked those people for that specific context. The only person I can think of that I definitely like when I first started at PDI, I would bug him a lot. Is his name was Denis Couchon. He was a supervisor at DreamWorks, awesome guy, and I would bug him all the time, like, hey, and he's also like a great draftsman. So he was like a great animator, great draftsman, and yeah, I kind of basically just kind of forced him to be my mentor in a way, I guess. But generally speaking, just over my career, especially in the beginning, I just kind of tried to get as much. I was just a sponge, like
Yeah.
and especially like when I first started at DreamWorks, because it was like a short stint. It was supposed to be a short stint. I acted accordingly. I was like, all right, I need to know as much as I can before
Yeah.
this is over,
Soak
right?
it
And then
up.
cut to
Yeah.
like several years later, and I'm still in that kind of attitude. So, it just and it never stops. You keep learning from just different people. But yeah, so no one specific mentor. It's just kind of asking a lot of people who I thought were just doing amazing at a certain type of animation.
No, that's great because that's one obviously the primary benefits of being at a top notch studio is you're just surrounded by so many talented people, and people do have their kind of strengths that they kind of shine at. So being surrounded by so much talent really kind of gives you access to that hive mind. There's always somebody who excels or is better at a thing than you that's nearby. So that's very very useful kind of fertile training ground. Awesome. So
Mhm.
let's see. So you were at PDI and DreamWorks for a number of years, but at some point you kind of transitioned more into leadership to animation supervising. Were you Hoka there ever as well, or?
No, not at DreamWorks.
Okay, well, so what can you describe or like speak to your transition into leadership? Like when did you know you were ready for that? Was that something that you aspired to, or is it something you were tapped for, or kind of sought out? And kind of like what was that transition like from just shot contributor to more like leadership roles?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely aspire to it because there's just more that you do in that role, right? Like, I love the idea that you can develop a character. And, in DreamWorks, depending on the project, like, some projects are more sequence soup based and others are character soup based. So to me, like, the character soup was like this kind of holy grail of like just being able to, like, just get a character and um, develop, you have enough of your stamp, right, on that character. I think is just such a satisfying thing that just animating wouldn't have given me. And I feel like so I always wanted to kind of have more of that responsibility anyway. And yeah, just I went. I guess it was pretty organic, where it's like started as a junior, then just kind of animator, then a character lead, and then once you get a taste of the character lead, you're like, yeah, I want more of this. Like this is, so it's like little breadcrumbs, and then the more you have, the more you want. So yeah, just basically was like character lead for Megamind on Minion, the character, and then from there just jumped onto Madagascar 3, I think it was, and just kind of worked on King Julian, and just kept going from there. But I think, generally speaking, there's just a lot of new challenges for each character that it kind of keeps that kind of position really really kind of fun, but also humbling because
Yeah,
everything you learn on a character like Minnie and like a fish and a gorilla, and then it's like completely different with Boss Baby, and it's completely different to feel better in, and so like yeah, I think to me it was something that was always interesting, and then it's just one of those things where a lot of things have to align. Really, it's not about any one thing. Like you have to do a good enough job where your leadership sees it and says like, okay, yeah, we want to give him more to kind of want to give him the opportunity, but also there has to be a spot available, and also there has to be a good timing. Like there's all these things that are beyond your control, right?
yeah,
The only thing you can do is just try to do a good job, and if you can bring something to a character, that I feel like is where the leadership would go like, oh, this person like was really good at making like these memorable shots with this person, and they weren't supervising. That helps kind of
yeah.
get you to the other side of the fence in a way, right? Because you're kind of demonstrating that there's more value that you can give to the show and to the characters, and but yeah, so that's kind of how it happened. I just kept on working on different movies and trying to hone in more and more on characters and bring as much value as I can. And then when the leadership was, depending on the leadership, the ones that were interested in what I was giving and the style that I was doing it, that they would give me the chance. So yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned Minion, and I started forming another question because, like you said, it's a very very unique and different character design. A fish kind of swimming around in like a robot gorilla head thing. Would you, as you're looking back, are there, I guess, either characters or shots that you would say were particularly hard? Like, does anything stick out as like the hardest shot you ever kind of had to do, or like a particularly hard rig or character to kind of work with?
Yeah, I do remember one shot that was hard in the sense that it was one where I kept genuinely questioning if this is actually if I'm gonna be able to make it work. So I was constantly like sweating and then giving it like several hours and then looking at it and was like, this looks horrible still, and I don't know the answer. And it took me a while, and there was a lot of constraints, and there was a lot of action, and it was I remember it was a shot. Actually, it got cut
Oh
in
no.
the end. I think it was like really long, and so that probably hurt too. But basically, it was just it was a shot of King Julian after like he has this thing with Sonia, and she's like not listening to him and rolling him around and squeezing him and stretching him, and there's a lot of perspective and stuff, and at the time we were also using the old software at DreamWorks. Like the new software is incredible, but the old software was old, and so it was just very difficult to even get something simple to work. So that one, like yeah, that's the one that I can think off the top of my head. That was really difficult. It was on Madagascar 3. But actually, yeah. By the way, one thing I wanted to actually mention, just to sorry to bring you back to the previous question, but
Oh, good.
with the suit, with the kind of growing into a leadership role, just something that maybe your viewers might find helpful is like there's usually this when you're not in a leadership role, there's usually this thing in your head of like, well, I have to get this good to be in that role, right? Like the truth is, the reality is like, it's not like you become a soup and then suddenly you're just like it's like Super Mario one upping or taking a mushroom. It's like suddenly you're good at every. No, you still have the same problems and you still have the same strengths and weaknesses. It's just that you have an opportunity now. So
Yeah.
I think it's kind of important. You know, like I still suck at the things that I suck at. I have a tendencies to do things naturally, and those are still the things that I'm good at. And so it's normal. Like it's just important for anyone who is interested in getting into that role to just be aware, like just do your best, but don't get frustrated or confused why you haven't gotten there yet, and don't ever think that, oh, it's because I'm just not good enough, because it's again that you are who you are. Your strengths and weaknesses are going to stay the same when you become a soup, but it's just a question of all these other things kind of aligning, and then just the leadership of a specific show, just seeing seeing how you'll be valuable for their show. So just want to bring that up because like that is something I've noticed a lot of people are usually ask. It was like, you know, how when am I qualified? It's like it's not just about that. That you're still gonna learn. You're gonna have to learn forever.
Well,
So
that's a good point actually that you touched on, and so I wonder, can you so beyond the work itself, obviously, as you step into leadership, especially in like a role like you're in now, I would assume, there's a lot of other like more like soft skills and stuff involved as well beyond just the shots that you're producing. What would you say are some of the I guess additional qualifications that make somebody excel or do particularly well in a leadership role beyond their ability to produce shot work?
yeah, I mean, I remember having this conversation with Ludo from DreamWorks, and he put it perfectly. He said that really what it comes down to is how good you are at self-evaluation, right?
Mm,
So because if you can evaluate yourself, whether that means you notice, it basically means you know your strengths and you know your weaknesses, but you know how to play those weaknesses and make them better. So if you're someone who's great at self-evaluation, well, now people who you need to evaluate will feel safer with you because they know that you kind of know how to judge your own work. So I think that's a huge part of at least the
mm,
creative part is like
yeah.
the better you are at self-evaluation and how you go about it and deal with it, I think it is a big part of what makes like a great creative supervisor. And then in terms of other things, like yeah, you should you're gonna have to do things also that you don't enjoy, whether it's meetings, whether it's spreadsheets, whether it's so you need to have the stamina to like just be open to doing things that you don't like to do. That's in a way that's kind of a thing, like a skill too. Is like some folks just don't want to do it, and that's totally understandable. It's not fun, and other folks are like, all right, I get it. It is what it is, and it's just part of the job. So I feel like if you have those two things, that's a pretty great place to be
Yeah.
for a leadership position.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. It's really well thought out answer. I like that. Awesome. So let's transition a little bit. So in my preparation for this, I was kind of digging into your IMDb and all these types of things. And I came across a number of live action projects that you've been involved with, either directed or co-directed or whatever. Can you speak to how some of those came about? When did you sort of transition? Or like, have you always been kind of, as well as animation, also doing like live action type of projects, or where does your interest in those types of things arise?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it definitely started before animation. Like I used to use my parents' camera when I was a kid to do like little short films, cinematic pieces. They were horrible, but like just I would basically just like the idea of telling a story. And it's interesting because when you're a kid, it's like you don't know how editorial works. So like I used to be like, how did they manage to put like a story? How did they put all the correct shots in order perfectly the first time? Because I don't know what an avid is at the time. I'm a kid. But so yeah, I would just do like linear narratives with friends, and it was like the most satisfying thing. And like then I got into like visual effects and magic tricks of like doing the thing of like, hey, this is gonna disappear, and then just pause, take it out of my hand, and then play again, and it looks like it dis. So just a lot of little magic tricks like that, and then stop motion. That was a little bit of animation, I guess. Um, but yeah, I definitely just love making films, right? And so I think at a certain point, this was around the time that SLRs started to kind of come to the market, and everyone had like amazing looking image, right? Where it's like got a nice depth of field, you got a professional camera, and so that got like there's a bunch of us at work. There's me, Carlos Portolas, Nadia said, who kind of got together and started to kind of play around with these little shorts, and we had more friends like Nelson Brown, who acted in a bunch of the shorts. And I know I'm forgetting someone. But anyway, we really like started to do these shorts on the side. And there's one that we collaborated with Carlos Baena as well, where it was even a bigger short. Like we kept on challenging ourselves. If you look at kind of the timeline of the shorts, they definitely got more and more complicated or complex. Well, both, right? Because with live action, anything that looks simple is not simple. It never is. But it was such a satisfying part of kind of the filmmaking process, and it did help a lot. And even in animation, of like, all right, what are the things that lighting is thinking of? What are the things that editorial might be thinking of? All these things kind of connect to each other, and I think live action, even though it's a different medium, it definitely helps inform you in ways that I don't think you necessarily would think. Also, just understanding the directors more, right? Where you see how many questions they have to answer. You see, so the more shorts you do, the more you become. You'll say things like, "I know you have a lot probably on your mind right now, but just one more question." You get it. You get the other side of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like that was pretty fun. I think we did that for a while, and then now with all the stuff happening with Blender, and I just love how big Blender is getting. I'm not paid by Blender, but I freaking love Blender, and I think just seeing all these people with their short projects that they can finally do, and finally is the right word because they've been wanting to do shorts for a long time. So it's nice to be able to see all these like independent filmmakers just do exactly what they want without having to necessarily always appeal to the masses, and in a way that brings something more personal, unique, and kind of genuine to their projects that you might not see if it's something that's supposed to be for everybody. So it's been kind of inspiring, honestly, lately with all the craziness happening in the industry, but it's been also inspiring just to see how much indie work and just kind of incredible personal pieces are getting made.
Awesome. So, without going into any details, what can you tell us about your current role at Netflix? The types of things that you do in your day to day. Without going into any details, of course. But
At the moment, I would say a lot of kind of pre-production type tasks. So, yeah, just a lot of kind of testing out face shapes, expressions, the rigs. I think there's a lot of kind of drawovers, and I'm kind of splitting my time working with animation and working with art. And so it's been kind of really kind of refreshing to bridge the two. And it also just gets you thinking of things that you wouldn't usually think of. Like there's a lot of stuff. I've noticed this with art where, you're there's a lot of research, a lot of, Googling and Pinteresting, whatever else is like just kind of different subject matters, different environments, timelines, periods, everything where everything changes, right? The production design changes. And so it's been very satisfying in terms of just growth and just doing a lot of things that are, especially in the art side, like uncomfortable for me because I'm not, I'm fairly new to that stuff, and I can bring my animation kind of eye into the art, right? Everything I've learned, but there's all this other stuff, whether it's in the costumes, whether it's in the environment, just a lot of other stuff that I haven't necessarily thought of, or haven't thought of that early on. Like there's a lot of stuff you can answer in art that are very character specific things. That it's been kind of eye opening just to see how deep you can go in that stage. So yeah, it's an unannounced project, unfortunately, but it's been kind of really fun splitting my time between the two, just kind of bridging the gaps and seeing how one informs the other, and then vice versa, actually.
yeah,
So that's kind of what I'm doing at the moment. Yeah, it's
awesome. Very cool. So I know obviously the industry is in a really kind of, not even kind of, like a very rocky patch the past couple of years. And I feel like every day there's like just some new announcement of some new disappointing news with the industry, and more closures and all these types of things. That being said, obviously, I make this podcast to put inspiration and light out into the world. Are there things that sort of, and you touched on a couple a little bit ago, but are there things that kind of excite you about the future of the industry? Like, are there, like, what would you say kind of excites you most about, where the industry might potentially find itself, just to kind of counterbalance a little of the doom and gloom out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the first thing that comes to mind really is just accessibility. Like there's more and more that we can do as just individual artists or small teams. Like that's pretty exciting. Like it's something that, I know it's been happening for a while, but now more than ever, it feels pretty prominent. Like there's a lot that you can do with a small team. And I think that's going to bring a lot of new exciting projects and a lot of just very, very different ideas, new ideas that don't even cross your mind. And so I think that's a good thing, not just for the industry, but for like global culture, right? You're gonna see things that are, and you already see it, right? Whether it's like shows on YouTube, whether it's just kind of personal pieces, but there's definitely more high quality content now that's coming out from individuals or small groups, and that I'm super excited about. So I'm very curious to see where that goes, and of course the giant elephant in the room is AI. So I don't know. I mean, I guess the only thing I'll say about that is like, if AI happens, I mean, what other job were you gonna do anyway? Like what? I mean, you're still gonna want to do the thing you want to do. So I'm sure there's gonna be another way to make money off of it. It just might look like a very different business model. AI, I'm sure it's gonna, like, it's inevitable. I think it's gonna happen, but it's tough to kind of see what that's gonna look like, and I'm sure it'll get there at some point. But as of now, it's not there, and what I see is definitely not there. Like the videos of, like, when you see a little 2-minute clip of like some new AI company that's like, check out what we can do. You know that 2-minute clip, there's probably 5 billion hours of horrible stuff until they got kind of okay motion and not even great acting in those 2 minutes, right? And there's almost a certain style to AI already, right? You can
Yeah.
kind of tell if it's AI, even in the way they, like, the slow motion look at the
Everything's
camera and
slow and
effectively.
yeah. Yeah.
It's weird. It's just weird. So again, that's not to say it won't get better. Obviously, it's gonna get better, but it's definitely not there right now. So for now, I'm just gonna try to focus on just the exciting things, which is like, we still get to do this, and we don't know what's gonna happen. It might take a route that, just like the whole AI thing was an unexpected thing that happened. Maybe there's a route within that whole thing that's going to be unexpected. I don't know. But why waste energy, like being
Yeah.
angry about it? Just like,
Yeah.
might as well just do what you love in the meantime. And then, yeah, like I said, just there's going to be other people that also want to create. Whether a computer does it or not, if it's therapeutic, if you like drawing, you're not going to just stop because it makes you happy. And so you're still going to have to find meaning by doing things, and you're still going to want to do things that are just very therapeutic for you. So it doesn't mean that you're going to stop doing them. It doesn't mean that other artists are going to stop doing it, and maybe you want to collaborate with those artists, and guess what, you just made yourself a human team again, and you're going to make something. So yeah, just enjoy what you do, and the future will sort itself out and unravel, and we'll just deal with it. But for now, it's just, I guess it's like stoicism, right? Where you just don't what is it, like, don't create more mental pain than actually exists. So just enjoy what you're doing right now, and
Yeah.
make the most out of it.
Oh, that's really good. I feel like you touched on something kind of interesting as you were talking about that. I started thinking about what Ludo said. I think you said it was Ludo who told you before, when you were talking about like that ability to self-evaluate. And as you were talking about them going through those 5 billion hours to find those 2 minutes, it's like they're and even, I kind of talk about this with my students, like when you're going through your reference takes, it's like, I shoot a lot of reference too. It takes me a long time. I'm not Meryl Streep. I can't nail something on the first take or whatever. It's like, I need to do a bunch, but I think my skill and that I've developed through over time is my ability to go through those hundreds of takes and find one that's pretty good. Right. To kind of go through, go through all of that. And so there's a skill there, that ability to recognize what's good out of what's not good. And I think it's something that all humans have to some degree, right? And so I like to think that audiences will be discerning enough to still kind of pick out the good out of all of the not good that will surely come, from this kind of AI revolution. I think there's going to be more stuff than ever, but that doesn't mean there's going to be more good stuff than ever. This is going to be 99% bad, and some good stuff might come of it. Who knows? But as we look at ourselves as artists, as people with discerning taste or whatever it is, continuing to grow those muscles that evaluate whether something's working, whether something communicates, whether something moves you or speaks to you, is a useful tool, a valuable tool that I don't think is going anywhere, right? I think we'll always retain that ability to even if that's what the job becomes, is just you're the person who goes through the 5 billion hours and picks out the couple good clips, but they're still going to need something that has discerning taste and objective kind of, or subjective even taste, that can kind of make those choices, leading the charge. And so, yeah, I'm always kind of thinking around the problem, or the question of like, what are the computers going to get good at first, and what jobs are they coming for first, and all these types of things, and trying to think of the things that are kind of innately human that humankind tends to be particularly good at, and kind of stay one step ahead of the machines. But yeah, I love what you said with just kind of what's going to happen is going to happen, and sitting there and worrying about it is not productive. But figuring out how to continue expressing yourselves and doing the things that bring joy, obviously makes sense to do, and that's not going away.
Yeah, totally.
I want to be respectful of your time. We're about at the cut it off mark, but I wanted to ask, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you hadn't pursued animation or filmmaking at all, are there other things you could have seen yourself doing, like in an alternate universe, as a career path?
Yeah, either music or architecture. Music, because it's just the next thing that I love, and architecture, just because I have a family of a lot of architects. So
Okay, yeah.
I guess that would have been the other. But yeah, I think it would be one of those two. It still has to be something, I guess, somewhat creative, just because that's kind of the part of my brain that I'm most comfortable in. The
Yeah.
analytical business side, unfortunately, is like a little. It's not great. So,
That's fair.
so yeah. So I enjoy right side of the brain type activities. So I think it would be music or architecture.
What do you play? What
I play drums,
Oh, me too.
guitar. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
All
I'm a
right.
drummer my whole
We'll
life.
do a
Yeah.
little jam session at
Yeah.
some point. Doesn't Pixar have that room like the like the jazz looking?
Oh yeah, they have the
instrument?
half note. Yeah, down. Yeah, it's like a basement little jazz lounge. They have set up that. Yeah, like once a week. There's like a Slack channel where they have like the bring your own band Slack channel, and you can they go down there and jam out pretty regularly. So yeah, it's I find that there's a lot of, like you said, like people who express themselves creatively usually find multiple outlets to do that, and so yeah, we have a ton of musicians in the department, of course, and finding time to do little jam sessions and stuff is always fun.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, you gotta let out the energy somehow.
For sure, yeah. Drumming's really great up for that. I've got a electric set out in the garage, and my 4-year-old loves to play on it now too, which is really cute to kind of see him finding his rhythm and stuff. It's super cute. So yeah.
Does he have like the giant headphones on just for his ears? Is he like?
No, it's an electric kit. So most of the time I don't even turn it on. But when I turn on the amp, I keep it down pretty low. Yeah, man. So thank you so much for your time, Ronnie. This has been an awesome conversation. It's been great sitting down, getting to know you a little bit, and hearing about your journey. I'm sure all our listeners found all of that really inspirational. You touched on a lot of great things there. So just so grateful for your time. Thank you to all the listeners for sticking with us and tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe. We've got a lot more great episodes coming as we continue through the year. We're just so grateful to all of you for supporting the channel and sharing it and passing it around. It goes a long way. We hope to just keep bringing you guys a lot more inspirational conversations throughout the year. So thank you again, Ronnie, for your time, and good night to you all.
My pleasure, man. Yeah. Thanks for having me.